Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Today, the second topic from the chapter number 1, that is human organ system, will be discussed. The two main ingredients of today's topic will be nerve and types of neurons. This is the figure which you will be able to understand better at the end of the lecture. Okay, a bit of review from the previous knowledge, that is the knowledge from the lecture number 1, which we have discussed about the nervous system and the structure of neuron. Nervous system, we have detailed discussion on structure of neuron. Then we have talked about the nerve impulse. Then nerves, the first ingredient of today's topic was the nerve. What is nerve, or what are nerves? Simply an organ system which carries messages from one part of the body to another. Why? Simply to coordinate different functions of our body. Again, the review from the previous knowledge, the human nervous system actually comprises of peripheral nervous system, that is PNS, and central nervous system, that is CNS. You have talked about it. Okay, this is the same very slide which we have already discussed. The nervous system divided into central and peripheral nervous system, and then central nervous system was composed of brain and spinal cord, whereas peripheral nervous system was composed of network of nerves. Central nervous system made up of brain and spinal cord, and that was actually acting as the core body center. Peripheral nervous system composed of all the nerves which were carrying messages to and from the central nervous system, and both the central and the peripheral nervous system which were actually working together and allowing our body to respond to the foreign stimuli. That is completely labeled figure of a neuron, which we have already discussed. Okay, this is actually the main focus of today's topic, nerve. What is nerve? Simply you can call a cable which is composed of bundle of axons. Now recall axons. From the structure of neuron, you can recall there was a structure, a component of a neuron that was actually a long thread-like structure which was originating from the central nervous system, that was actually originating from the neuron cell body. This one, this is the axon, and that was carrying messages away from the cell body, that is axon. So when these kind of several axons are combined together, existing in the form of a cluster or a group, and this group is now covered by a sheath, that is actually termed as nerve. So what is nerve? A collection or a bundle of axons enclosed by a common sheath, and the function of the nerve is simply to transmit the messages we have already discussed. This is a three-dimensional view of all the nerves. These are the cable or thread-like structures which you can see. These all are collection of axons. These are actually the nerves. Now, the second main ingredient of today's topic was types of neurons. On the basis of the function, the same very neuron which we have already discussed, this one, there are three main categories of neurons. One is sensory neuron, the second category is motor neurons, and the third category is interneurons. We'll discuss one by one in detail, everyone. Now, sensory neurons, the first category. Sensory, you can derive and you can recall that sensory is something associated with sensing. So sensory neurons are those neurons which actually carry nerve impulses or the messages from sense organs. Now, what are sense organs? I am fully sure that you all must be familiar with all the 5 sense organs: ears, eyes, nose, skin, and tongue, which are actually specialized to receive one out of each 5 senses. Ears, for example, are responsible for sense of hearing. Eyes are responsible for sense of sight or vision. Nose is responsible for sense of smell. Skin for feeling, and tongue for taste through the taste buds. So sensory neurons are those neurons which carry nerve impulses from sense organs to the central nervous system. To the central nervous system means to brain and spinal cord. These actually carry messages from these sense organs, which these sense organs receive from the stimuli and carry that message to the central nervous system, that is brain and spinal cord, so that brain and spinal cords can study them, interpret them, and uh, should be able to understand what has actually happened. Now, this is the structure of the neuron. You can say the structure of neuron, which you have discussed, the very first structure of neuron. This is actually the sensory neuron. all the same structure and components, same labelings, which I have already discussed. You can see over here. Now, the second type of neuron is interneurons. Inter simply means something which is present between two, or connecting two different things, or serving as a link or a junction. So interneurons are those neurons which actually form a link between the sensory neuron and the motor neurons. There are three main categories: the sensory neurons, motor neurons, and interneurons. So interneurons are actually that category of neuron which serve the purpose of linking between the sensory and motor neurons, and these are actually the neurons which are making up your brain and spinal cord. The brain and spinal cord and all the nerves are actually made up of neurons. So brain and spinal cord made up of interneurons. This is the structure of interneuron. You can see dendrites over here in the center. This is the cell body having the nucleus, and this is a short axon, and these are the synaptic endings or the terminal knobs, which you have already discussed in the previous lecture. Now, this is the third category of the neuron, termed as the motor neurons. Motor is indicating something associated with the motion or a mobility. These are actually those neurons which carry nerve impulse from central nervous system, that is brain and spinal cord, and carry those messages to the other organs, which we call as effectors. Okay, so motor neurons, the neurons which carry nerve impulses or messages from central nervous system to the effectors. Effectors are those organs of our body which respond, or which produce a particular reaction to a particular action. These effectors can be muscles as well as glands. If these are muscles, they will produce response by simply contracting or relaxing, and if these are glands, they will produce response by simply releasing some secretions. So this is a motor neuron, dendrites, central cell body, axon, and myelin sheath. And this is the red colored, this is bundle like structure. This is actually a muscle fiber. So here the neuron and muscle fiber are linking with each other, having a connection. So this is the connection or the junction between the neuron and the muscle is termed as neuromuscular junction. So this is the figure which I have mentioned at the start of the today's lecture, where I have mentioned the nerves and as well as the types of neurons. And I have told you people that we will discuss this figure at the end because you will be able to understand. So I hope so. Now you have got my point. Three types of neurons which we have just discussed: the sensory neurons, the interneurons making a brain and spinal cord, and the motor neurons, how they are actually functioning together to coordinate the actions. Sensory neurons receive message from the sense organs and carry that message to the brain and spinal cord. That means they send their message to the interneurons. Now, interneurons present in the brain and spinal cord study that message, and then the message to the effectors, that is the muscles and glands, is sent to the motor neurons. So this is how the three neurons actually coordinate and collaborate with each other to execute a single function. So the same very knowledge which I have already mentioned through my verbal lecture, I have written over here in the category of functions of neurons. So this was the end of our today's lecture. And at the end of today's lecture, you should be able to answer these questions, because these are the same questions which I have discussed in the lecture. Okay, this is your home task. You have to completely fill it and understand it. This is again from the lecture. This is the second home task, and this is also. So this is your home task, my dear students. You have to complete your home task within the 2 to 3 days of this lecture and send me back, so I can come to know how much you have understood. Any queries, any problems, you can ask me. Thank you so much.